everyone, Hungry Reader here. It's December 2nd and time for more Not a Creature Was Stirring. How many scary stories, scary movies, and nightmares have you seen about the whole world as you know it being a lie, or a computer simulation, or hypnotism? Well, you want to know who wrote one of the very first stories about that, and how people react when everything is taken away from them? It was Beatrix Potter, with her book, The Tale of Two Bad Mice. Once upon a time there was a very beautiful doll's house. It was a red brick with white windows, and it had real muslin curtains, and a front door, and a chimney. It belonged to two dolls called Lucinda and Jane. One morning, Lucinda and Jane had gone out for a drive. Tom Thumb put his head out for a moment. Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca went upstairs and peeped into the dining room. Then they squeaked with joy. Such a lovely dinner was laid out upon the table. There were tin spoons and lead knives and forks and two dolly chairs, all so convenient. Tom Thumb set to work at once to carve the ham. It was a beautiful shiny yellow streaked with red. The knife crumpled up and hurt him. He put his finger in his mouth. "It's not boiled enough. It's hard. You have a try, Hunca Munca." Hunca Munca stood up in her chair and chopped at the ham with another lead knife. "It's as hard as the hams at the cheesemonger's." I have no idea what hard as the hams at the cheesemonger's is supposed to mean. Maybe Beatrix Potter was having a little slam at the meat quality of her local dairy? Then Tom Thumb lost his temper. He put the ham in the middle of the floor and hit it with the tongs and the shovel. The ham flew all into pieces, for underneath the shiny paint it was made of nothing but plaster. "The world that you know is a lie, Hunca Munca." Then there was no end to the rage and disappointment of Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca. While Tom Thumb was up the chimney, Hunca Munca had another disappointment. She found some tiny canisters upon the dresser labeled rice, coffee, sago. Do you have any idea what sago is? But when she turned them upside down, there was nothing inside but red and blue beads.
"You take the red bead, and you'll see just how far down the mouse hole goes."
Then those mice set to work to do all the mischief they could, especially Tom Thumb. But Hunca Munca had a frugal mind. After pulling half the feathers out of Lucinda's bolster, she remembered that she herself was in want of a feather bed. Then Hunca Munca went back and fetched a chair, a bookcase, a bird cage. Hunca Munca left them behind the coal box and went to fetch a cradle. What a sight met the eyes of Jane and Lucinda. The little girl that the doll's house belonged to said, "I will get a doll dressed like a policeman." But the nurse said, "I will set a mouse trap." So that is the story of the two bad mice. But they were not so very, very naughty after all, because Tom Thumb paid for everything he broke. He found a crooked sixpence under the hearth rug. Wait, a crooked sixpence? Like in the nursery rhyme? Wait, is Tom Thumb the crooked mouse that was caught by a crooked cat? Does this all take place in the home of the Crooked Man? As many of you probably know, Beatrix Potter was one of the preeminent wildlife illustrators of her day, but she also did lots and lots of wonderful little children's stories that live on to this day. Many of them, like The Two Bad Mice and Mrs. Tiggywinkle and Peter Rabbit and so forth, were inspired by animals that she herself kept as pets. And as often as not, she would work real people into the stories as well. This story features a dollhouse and is dedicated to the little girl who owned the dollhouse. Do you know how hard it is to try and pick a favorite Beatrix Potter story? Every time I do, I'm like, oh, it's got to be Two Bad Mice. Or no, it's Mrs. Tiggywinkle. No, it's Squirrel Nutkin. No, it's the Flopsy Bunnies. Because they're all so wonderful and so immortal. This book came out in 1904. It's 110 years old. And apart from a few stiff phrases, like as hard as the hams at the cheesemongers or sago, it absolutely stands up to this day. And that's why, to this day, every time I'm invited to a baby shower, which comes out more often than you might think, I always look for some Beatrix Potter merchandise as a baby present. Or, failing that, I get no by They Might Be Giants. Clap your hands!